was making my list, and I was checking it twice because I need to know who's naughty and nice. Are you naughty or are you nice? Santa Claus gonna come? He's gonna give you lots of presents? Are you gonna leave cookies, milk, give him a treat when he comes down that chimney? Leave you and your kids all those presents? I hope you're all nice. It's been a crazy year. We've gone through an awful lot, haven't we? Well, I think it's time for me to grab some tea. You want some tea? All right, let's have some tea. We'll chat a little bit. Okay. I must confess a little bit about something. This is not really my second video. It's only the second video you're seeing right now because I had other videos up before because I was giving it an astrological slant. But then I decided, it's kind of too much of a niche and it might not be as interesting to most folks as I thought that maybe it would. I gave it a little bit of extra thought and decided, well, I'm still going to keep the series going. It was a really interesting series because it had to do with some planetary cycles that related to what's going on in our world. And I'm going to regroup them and put them on my astrological channel where they belong. And I will put a link down below in the next couple of videos when I finally get them up. I have not loaded them onto the new site yet, but when I do, I will give you the links, and if you so desire to see them, you will see a series that's pretty interesting. In the meantime, I'm going to let you know how I kind of came about to become the Common Sense Patriot Lady. Something I've wanted to do for a long, long time, but, the technology wasn't there years ago. So I did a blog. I can't even tell you where the blog is today. It's one of those old blogs from like the late 90s when things started coming out there in blog form. And it was called Ask a Housewife. Now the reason it was called that was because I was a housewife during those years. When I came upon all these common sense kind of things, I would listen to the news and I'd say, well, duh, all you have to do is ask a housewife, referring to people that may or may not have had a college education, but just had a whole lot of common sense. And I found that housewives always had common sense. They're the ones that were keeping the home fires warm. They were putting dinner on the table at night, making the beds in the morning, getting the kids off to school, raising the babies, finding new recipes for the family to try, nice nutrition stuff, taking people to the beach in the summertime, entertaining during the holidays. Housewives do a lot, and they did a lot. We kind of lost a lot of that when women's lib came around, and they kind of forced many of us out into the work world. And I went kicking and screaming. I really didn't want to go out in that work world, but it was the way it was. It is what it is. So anyway, some of the things, I'll tell you one thing that was quite striking with the Ask a Housewife. And it was a coffee conversation a girlfriend and I were having one time after we'd seen a news clip about this atomic testing that was going on in the Bikini Atolls in the Pacific Ocean. And it happened in the 60s, but the news clip came about like in the 80s or 90s. We were talking about it. And this is how this Ask a Housewife came up, because they were talking about, well, we did some research and some diving, and we found, lo and behold, 25 years later after the testing, which was in the 60s, that they found there was a hole blown in the bottom of the ocean. Really? Yeah. Yeah. Ask a housewife. When it happened, we would have been able to tell you. atomic energy hole? I mean, we have kids that play in sand pits. They throw a rock and a rock disappears in the sand. It blew a hole in the sand. What about a comet? A comet comes blasting through space and it blows a hole in the middle of the desert in Arizona. There's a huge hole there, meteor crater. You have energy that big, you're going to have a hole. And then later on, they kind of wondered, well, how'd we get the ozone hole? Well, there was atomic testing above ground too. Holes. I mean, you have energy, it's got to go somewhere. It's got to make a hole. It's got to rip the fabric somewhere, right? Ask a housewife. Hello. And I'm near Area 51. It's my neighbor. I live in Las Vegas, and I hear stories. I moved here in 86, so this happened before my time. But when they were doing the nuclear testing above ground, people would get up on the tops of the casinos, and they'd have parties where they would watch the atomic testing, and they'd see that great big mushroom cloud off in the distance. They wouldn't wear sunglasses. They didn't know. There was just no knowledge as to the damage. But, you know, anybody that was a thinking person might not have done that. People just didn't think. They didn't know any better, you know. So, I don't know. Ask a housewife, right? So, I was listening to some of the news today, and I heard this story about 1/3 of the population of the United States is reputed to say that they want to move out of the country. Well, I say move. Bye-bye. Hopefully it's all you crackpots. Maybe it's all the people from Hollywood that we don't want anymore. Maybe it's all the pedophiles. Just go away so we can have a decent country again. But then again, we could flip it around and say, well, why don't we all move and we'll just trade places with all the people that want to invade our country and make it a piece of crap. We'll go down to your country, we'll make it all pretty again, and we'll have better weather anyway. So I say, move, or we'll move, or something. I don't know, maybe it won't be so bad. What do you say? And some women in the news, I would like to talk about Ruth Bader Ginsburg. She's been quite ill. She's got some kind of a cancerous growth in her lungs, which doesn't sound too good, and she is quite old, so I don't wish any harm on her as a person, but I'm kind of chomping at the bit and hoping she gets the hell out of the Supreme Court so we can get somebody else in there, so that we can get some of these things moving that need to be moved, such as the asylum ban. They just blocked that again. They went with these little baby judges all over the country that blocked the asylum ban that President Trump wanted to put in place, and now the Supreme Court they're backing that up. That's just the stupidest thing I ever heard of. Because it's just going to bring in the bad people. It's not going to bring in the people that truly need asylum. It's going to bring in those creeps that want to not assimilate. We want people to assimilate. We want people to come in. Come in legally. Come in if you're an asylum seeker, if you're a true asylum seeker. But none of this, I'm going to have Sharia law, and no-go zones, and I'm just going to rape women because it's my culture and I don't know any better, so I get to get away with it. Well, no. I live here, this is my culture, and I don't get raped. That's so backwards. We live in bizarro land. My gosh. And speaking of asylum, what about the Venezuelan women? Venezuela used to be a very, very prominent country. It was a country that made good fortunes for its people. It was rich in oil. There was a big industry going on down there, and socialism came in and just destroyed it. People don't have guns, so they couldn't fight back. Now women are in a position where they are selling their hair. They're selling their breast milk. They're selling sex just to get by, or maybe get a ride out of the country. Let's pray for those women. I wish there was something that we could do, but if they were to come across my border, I'd welcome them with open arms because they are true asylum seekers. And it looks like the Me Too movement has gone down to Brazil and gone after this man by the name of John of God. Have you heard of him? He's one of those faith healers. He's been there for a long, long time. I've heard of him. I've traveled around in the circles of the psychics and the New Agers and all of those healing kind of people, and I've heard of him, and for a while I thought he might be real and not a sham or a fraud, but it seems that there's hundreds of these women coming forward, and sexual abuse occurred, and I can kind of see where that might have happened, because when people are ill, they get desperate, they'll pay in any way they can, and if he asked for sexual favors, then that was just totally wrong. If you are a truly gifted healer, you heal at no cost to anybody. I know some healers out there, and they don't charge. They are the true and the gifted. And if he did all these bad things, well, shame on him, and he deserves what he gets. And there's one more woman in the news right now, and her name is Princess Ming. She is China's princess. I don't know if she's an actual princess, but she is a CEO of one of their biggest companies. I don't know how to pronounce it. I'm probably going to butcher it, but it's Huawei, Huawei, the telephone, the cell phones, the technology company. She is in trouble and going to be extradited to the U.S., I believe, in regards to violating sanctions to Iran and bank fraud. So there's some pretty big charges, and I guess China's really upset about that, as they should be. Any country would be. This company is also a spy agency for the Chinese Communist Party. Now you've got a high-tech telephone company that's a spy agency. Is this ringing any alarm bells for you guys? If you have these phones, if you have this technology in your homes, yeah, I'd be concerned. I really would. Privacy is everything to us, and we are losing it fast and furious, aren't we? It's also the leader in the technology of 5G. You heard of 5G? A very, very dangerous technology. It's going to kill us all. It's going to fry our brains. It's going to be in our homes. It's going to be controlling our windows, our cars, our cooking, everything that you can think of. It's going to control. It's going to control your car. If you get in your car, if they don't like your YouTube account, they can just shut your car off and suicide you, right? I don't think it's so good. Whoever controls 5G will control the world. Think about that. Research 5G. Not good, folks. Well, I'm going to finish up, and I'm going to have some more tea. And I just think that this is just the nicest way to end a day. Have a cup of tea. And I'm going to finish my list and check it twice and see who's naughty and nice. And I hope that you are nice.